Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for The Free Lawyer, another episode. And this is going to be a really dynamite one. I appreciate each of you for listening. If you haven't done so already, I love it if you could follow our podcast so the episodes are waiting for you. And if you're open to giving us a rating and review, I'd really appreciate that as well. I appreciate how you all listen and your support. And you're going to love today's episode. Today, I have Jon Cumberworth with me. And Jon is a fractional COO to law firms. Sometimes we work so darn hard, but we really aren't trained in business in law. We go to law school, we learn how to read, we learn how to write. We come out of law school, we learn how to take depositions and try a case. But now we're trying to run a business and we don't know how to do that. So Jon can give us some answers on that. Jon, welcome to The Free Lawyer.
Glad to be here, Gary. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Jon, tell me a little bit about your professional journey and how you got to where you are today and what you do.
Sure. I'll try to hit the high points,
Yes.
on the transformative side throughout the career.
Yes.
So I went to school here near Austin, Texas, Southwestern University, was a basketball player, came out, worked at Cintas, the uniform people, as a management trainee. So I had 4 years of running trucks and grinding and learning from a bigger business and how to be in that corporate world, but how to sell, how to work in an office, how to service customers. And from there, I went to oil and gas out in Houston and took me over to Dubai. So I ran about a 50-person business over in Dubai, went from 18 million to 35 million in revenue, set some EBITDA records, but it was more about steel distribution, steel supply chain, and service, strategic account servicing, and strategic relationship building. And I really loved that. Oil and gas started to dip a little bit in 2015. And I had started a business with a good friend of mine who's a personal injury attorney here in Austin called Client Chat Live. And we provided live chat to law firms. So that fun little widget on the bottom of a lot of law firm websites that pops up and proactively engages. That was us for about 600 law firms throughout the US and Canada. So 2015 to 2019, I ran that business, or 2021, excuse me. And we sold it in 21 to the parent company of Alert Communications. Many of you might be familiar with Alert. They do a great job on legal intake on the phone side and the voice side. So we were the chat component and the tech component added to that group. So left them earlier this year after a good opportunity with working with them. Earlier, I should say 2023. We're already in 24. It sneaks up on you, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
and now currently, as you said, fractional COO, started a business called Acting Executives, and we provide fractional executives, COO, CMO, CTO to small, medium-sized law firms that are looking to build their leadership team, but may not have either the capital or the need for full time. So,
yeah, as I said in the introduction, one of the things I've learned is so many lawyers are working so darn hard and don't have really time to focus on what's involved in running a business and how to learn to be a good manager and a good leader. So I think the services you provide are so important. You know, Jon, you've done so many different things in your past in business operations and leadership. What caused you to focus on being a COO to law firms?
It was running Client Chat Live. It was a small bootstrapped business, and we grew it to 7 figures. But it was when we got to that 7-figure mark that we said, for me, I was wearing so many different hats as the CEO, salesperson, a lot of different hats. And I would have loved that right-hand person. I would have loved for someone to come in and give me that framework and give me those systems to where I didn't have to come up with them myself. And then the most important part was executing them. So when I did have systems and put in frameworks, it was a whole nother task just to execute. And those systems are how to build your leadership team, how to develop leaders, and how to hold people accountable, and also how to grow that culture and develop that culture. So for me, I would have loved to have had that person. And I'm sure I could have. I just didn't know where to look or when to look.
So what made you focus on law firms as the niche where you wanted to be a COO instead of oil and gas, for example?
Right. So it was my time at Client Chat Live, working with so many law firms, so many digital marketing agencies to law firms. I did a lot of conferences, a lot of traveling throughout the years, and was able to meet a lot of different managing partners, law firm owners, some large, some small. And I really do believe that lawyers want to be lawyers. They went to law school to be lawyers and help people and help their clients. And that business side is often lacking. And I'd love to be able to step in and help. I also believe in on the plaintiff side and what a lot of the lawyers do and helping people every day. So it's good that I can help somebody that helps other people.
Yeah. And when you went to those conferences, you met a lot of other partners and leaders and owners of firms of different sizes. What were the major problems they identified for you about firm management that would make them open to using someone of your incredible expertise to help them?
I think it's always, and I'm still hearing it today. I can't find good people. It's hard to find good people. It's hard to keep good people. And to me, that's again, going back to culture. But I think finding good people, finding talent so that they can have people take over when they leave, or if they want to continue to scale. That's probably first and foremost. The other part was just the general client acquisition, and then they would hire vendors and hire other folks that can come in and do things for them, but they didn't know how to keep them accountable as well. So just keeping people accountable, whether it's a vendor or internal employees and full-time team members. So, it all goes back to culture for me as the kind of the overarching theme, though.
One of the things that I found, I talk to a lot of lawyers with what I do, and a lot of them talk about culture and not in a positive way. I've heard so much about a toxic office and leaders being nasty and even profane and not ever being positive or encouraging. Why do you think there is such a need for better cultures in law firms, and what can you do to help with that?
But I've seen business overall change. I know I'm still fairly young despite the gray and the beard, but being in different industries, being in corporate, being in, bootstrapped entrepreneurship, smaller business, I've seen the dynamic change as more millennials get into the workforce, as more of the Gen Z folks get into the workforce. And it's just a different way of doing business. And people really want, and I was the same way, I want to know that I'm making a difference. I don't just want to hit my metrics, and I don't just want to hit my targets. I want to know that I'm making a difference and going towards some bigger purpose. And that doesn't have to be some massive, crazy, we're going to change the world every day type of a purpose. But from a leadership standpoint, I think a lot of partners and managing and owners of law firms need to set that vision for their people. I think the vision is so important for both their employees and themselves as business owners. So I think it's changing, because it used to just be that grind, keep your head down, you'll get promoted, look up and hopefully you'll be promoted, to let's work towards something as a team. And I think there's just more value on that than in generations past.
You talk about the importance of having a good culture in the firm. What are some good strategies to develop a good firm culture?
First and foremost, the ownership, whether it's one person or whether it's multiple partners, have to be aligned, but also clear on what their vision is. It all starts from the top. They have to know where they want the firm to go. And that could be, revenue wise or scale wise, of course, but they also have to know what they want to be when they grow up. Do they want to be across multiple states? Do they want to be in one state, one region, one city? On top of that, what are the core values of the business? So the first thing is you have to set core values for your firm. There's many ways to do this exercise, but the best advice I can give is really understand what you value now, not what you want to be. So I did that with my business and put some things on the board, and one of my team members said, well, we're not that. And that's pretty clear. And it was great that he said that, because it's what I wanted to be, but it wasn't what we were. And so once we knew those values and we knew what our purpose was and we knew what our mission was, where we wanted to go, From there, I was able to figure out, okay, what kind of people do we need to bring on board? They need to meet our values. They need to align with our values. It didn't matter skill set necessarily, unless it was, bookkeeping and things like that. But even that, they needed to meet our values. And that's how you start building that team that thinks alike, or there is some diversity in the thinking, but they value the same things. So integrity, things along those lines. It starts to fit, and that's where you really start to build a team as opposed to just a group of people coming to work every day.
Yeah, I think some firms hire people based on where they went to law school, where their class rank was, and things of that nature. Instead, are they a good fit for us and how we work and how we work together and what our vision is, what our values are. You talked about leadership before, and I've seen that some law firms do not have what I consider to be good leaders. At least that's a complaint I hear for some folks who work there. What do you think is the essence of being a good leader in an enterprise such as a law firm?
It's clarity. And coming from working under people and working up to also being that leader, I can say clarity is the number one key aspect. And that's, again, being clear on the vision. What is your purpose? What are your values? And when I go back to purpose, so Client Chat Live, and I know it's a tech business, but it will relate to law firms as well. Our purpose was to supporting professionals' success. Success can be not arbitrary, but success is objective to a certain individual. So one law firm might want to get to 100 lawyers. One firm might want to play golf every Friday and get enough cases to where they can fill their docket, Monday through Thursday. So
Right.
success is a different, definition. But for me, it was being clear on where I wanted my business to go, so that when I had questions of, hey, should we do it this way? Should we do this? It was, this is our purpose. Does it meet that? Yes. Does it meet our values? Yes. Okay, let's do it. And the next time that team member asked that question, they had that kind of skill set initially of, does it meet our purpose? Does it meet our values? Good. That decision-making process was kind of streamlined, if you will, because I had that clarity of where I wanted to go as a business.
You use the word clarity a lot. And my experience is a lot of law firms just work. They work hard, they work hours. Like at this file, how would you help a law firm that is just working so hard, working away? How do you help them develop that important trait of clarity?
So it comes down to frameworks, and there's a few different ones out there. For me, it's defining, again, that purpose, the values, and then the mission. And the mission is quantitative. The mission is, okay, in 3 years, we want to be an integral service provider to 3,000 growing law firms. Something along those lines, where you've got a time set deal, as well as a numerical. So it's quantitative. From there, you have to have annual planning and quarterly planning. Annual planning, you're going to look at, okay, our mission is this. What do we need to do this year? Then let's identify, depending on the size of the business, if you've got 10 people, you don't want to have 10 priorities for the year. You want to break that down to 3 to 4 max. So having those clear annual priorities, then you work down to quarterly. And what are we going to do this quarter to get to that annual priority? Breaking that down even further, again, it's all one framework, and that just consistency and that inertia of once you get started is pretty amazing. But further down, it's weekly one-on-ones with direct reports. And to me, as a leader, it was my favorite thing, because we had staff meetings where everybody could chime in and share what they wanted to share. But some people are a little more timid in that group setting, and so that one-on-one for me with my team member was really an opportunity to give them the floor, and also gain that responsibility and say, these are your metrics. Where are you at with them? And they were reporting to me. So it wasn't that I was giving them the numbers. It was that they were giving me their updates and their plans.
So many law firm owners are overwhelmed with so many files they have to handle first and foremost. but then figuring out the administrative work, the executive tasks. How do you, as a fractional COO, help the law firm owner so he has more time to maybe make the big strategic decisions and to handle his work more efficiently? And so the business is run, but the law firm is run better. How do you help with that?
That's a great question. And that's definitely not an overnight thing, but for me, it's giving each individual, each role, a core 3 KPIs. So a lot of us have been in roles where it's like, oh, I could have 10
Well, I know
different.
what KPIs are, but some may not. So explain them.
Okay. Key performance indicators. So targets. So the easiest way to look at it is a salesperson. They're responsible for getting 10 new clients per month. It's quantitative. It's very clear. You might look at, say, someone in the finance department, making sure all deposits are clear by X date, or the AR never hits a certain percentage. And so it's up to them to identify, okay, AR needs to be under 2% and accounts receivable. So I need to start collecting money. So they don't have to come to you and say, hey, what should my metrics be each time? They know what their targets are. But whittling it down to 3, and I've had some situations where we go to 2 in a role. It's based on, it helps the business owner or the folks in charge knowing, okay, this person is targeting these things. They're focused on it. They can easily do 10 different things. We've all been in that situation where we've got fires happening, but you can look at that and say, okay, these are my core 3. This doesn't get me to my core 3. I've already identified, and my leadership has identified, these 3 things will help us get to our quarterly priority. I'm going to put this to the side and focus.
So
For
you
me,
help,
that helps.
you help the firm owner by helping their staff all have targeted missions that they're supposed to accomplish, so that they know. Sometimes they may come in and say, what I'm going to do today, but they'll have, instead of focus, and a target for their particular staff position, whether they're an associate or a partner or the bookkeeper or the paralegal, as to what they're supposed to do.
Exactly. It really sets those expectations. And again, these 3 are very quantitative. So even if it's a project-based priority or target, you can break that down into sections, so that it's, okay, we're 50% of the way done, we're 60% of the way done. But I think the word, as you started saying that, the word empower came to mind. It's setting those expectations and then empowering your team to achieve those targets, or create a plan for a week to help them get closer to those targets.
From what you've seen, from what you've done working with other firms, from talking to other people, what are some of the biggest challenges or pain points for law firms, and how can you help them with that?
I would say hiring and retaining talent is probably first and foremost. And, I've seen some different job ads, job postings on LinkedIn that just says, pre-lit paralegal, these are your duties. This is what you're going to do. Call it, like, submit your resume if you're interested. Really, really boring, really, really dry. It says nothing about the firm. It says nothing about the purpose or the mission or the values. So I think first and foremost, hiring and retaining talent is probably the biggest thing. Second is, for any business, unless you've got a stream of referral sources, it's client acquisition. So intake, and it depends on the practice type, but who's answering the phones, who's handling potential clients, who is being that first line of, first impression. So that leads to that leads to client acquisition, is the intake, who's answering the phones and who's responding to those potential clients. And then third, I think those 2 are probably key enough.
So when you
to
talk
help.
about, hiring the right person who aligns with the company, how does the firm figure that out? How do they ascertain this person would fit well with our culture? What's the process they should use, or how would you advise them in terms of identifying the right paralegal to join our firm?
It goes back to core values. So when you put that job posting out, you mention your values. You mention what you're on a mission to do. We're on a mission to take on 3 states and grow at this pace, or we're on a mission to do X, Y, and Z. So it's really giving them that in the job posting, and you're going to filter out people that say, oh, I don't align with that. They're not going to submit their resume. They're not going to apply. So that's first and foremost. Second is when you start interviewing, it's not just about, okay, how many years of experience do you have? Tell me about when you did this before, blah, blah, blah. It's more about asking questions that don't just say, hey, what do you think about this value? It's questions to identify how they've handled those situations in the past and how they might align with your values. One question I used to ask was, and I always preempted it with HR. I don't need any names. I don't need any specifics, but tell me about your best friend and why you all are friends. And that to me showed who they align themselves with.
Interesting question. That's a fascinating question.
It was like HR. I don't want names. I don't want too much info, but give me some information and some background on that. The other thing was, so once they're the values questions, then you start looking at can they do the job? Then it's the specifics of their abilities. And then the second part is, or the final part is, you've got to do some tests with them, have them show them your work product. And so you can get an idea of how they approach situations.
One of the things I hear a lot is that lawyers are afraid to express concerns, issues with management of the firm because they feel like there might be a black mark against their name. They'll be thought less of if they speak up and say, hey, I think this is an issue about how something is handled. And I think collaboration and communication can be really important to make the firm work better. How do you encourage law firm owners to have a practice, a culture where people feel comfortable in sharing ideas and concerns, even if the leadership would rather not hear it? It's not maybe good news. It's a challenging issue. But how do you create that culture where everyone says, I can talk to you, John, about such and so, and feel safe in doing that?
That's a great question. It's probably one of the most difficult things for a leader to do is balance that, that line of, you do have to have, some situations where you're authoritative and, hey, this is the way we're doing it. And then you have to have that opportunity for people to voice in that safe environment. So for me, it's a matter of building trust. It's not like, hey, we're going to have a meeting and then everything's going to be great. It does take time and it takes consistency. So again, going back to the values and the purpose and the vision, that clarity as a leader, if you're not all over the place, that helps your team understand what's important to you. And then it's when you get into those one-on-ones with your direct reports and they say, I've got a great idea, or this really needs to be fixed. It's not just pushing it aside. It's giving them either the, yes, go ahead and fix that and let me know how it's going, and follow up with, did everything go okay? Do you need my help with that? To where they can start to say, oh, my opinion is valued and I'm going to speak up. When I was in Dubai, we had a machine shop with a lot of different cultures, people from all over the place, and we had safety contests, and it took a few different contests for the team in the shop to start to submit real ideas. They didn't know what we were going to do with those. They thought it was maybe going to be a punishment. But when they started putting ideas together and started seeing us fix them and make things more safe, then they trusted that we did have their best interest and we were being sincere in that endeavor.
Wonderful. There are a lot of law firm owners who wish they had a more successful firm, that they were growing, making more money, and also had this ideal culture. How would you help a prospective new client law firm who reaches out to you fuel that growth, but at the same time have that ideal culture?
Make sure they have values set that are actually legitimate, sincere core values to the business, and that everybody also knows those values. there is an exercise as well that I work with on new clients, and it's, would you hire everybody back? And it's going down, and it's sometimes might sound a little bit cutthroat, but based on your values, does everybody meet these values? Do they all share in them, align with them, and you would hire them? Emphatically, yes. So I think it's really just sitting back and identifying, what does your team look like? And if you want to get from here to here, is this the team that's going to get you there? And it's looking at it again, as a former athlete, it's always a sports analogy for me, but it's, you're Phil Jackson, you're the coach, you're John Wooden. What are you doing? How are you building your team? And how are you giving them the tools to achieve that? So it's really identifying your team, and do you have the team to get you to where you want to go?
Mm-hmm. John, I know how much you love helping and supporting law firm owners. What do you find most fulfilling about what you do?
It's, again, when I was in their shoes as a business owner, and I'm again in the same shoes, I did it to myself, but it's really seeing them have an aha moment, or having that situation of, I didn't have to answer this question 5 times over and over again. And my team is really doing this. And I'm able to step back and do what I want to do, whether that's be, first chair on more of the cases, or whether it's, you want to be the CEO of your business. That's all good. It's what you want to do, but it's really giving them that freedom. And that's why I jumped out of the corporate world and into my own business, was getting that freedom. And yes, it comes with a lot of headaches and some different things I didn't expect, but it's having the ability to step back and say, my team is handling that, and I can be free to do X, Y, and Z. And I love that.
And a lot of that comes back to what you said, to giving each person, the staff, knowing what the role is, giving them targets to reach, and empowering them to do that, and supporting them in that role. John,
Exactly.
I call this podcast The Free Lawyer, because it's all about how we can create greater personal freedom in our life. And that's been my passion for myself, and now for others. John, what does true personal freedom mean to you?
To me, it goes back to that last statement, but it's being able to do what I want to do. And that means, that's such a cliche answer, but it means you can work 60 hours. If you want to work, you can do that, but you've really freed yourself up to be able to put other people in place, or you've freed yourself up to do the work that you want to do. So it's choice. It's that freedom of choice, to being able to say, this is what I want to do, and I'm excited to do it each day. A lot of people don't get that choice. And to me, that's the freedom, when they have the opportunity to choose.
Wow. John, that's wonderful. John, for those who are listening, who'd like to learn more about what you do and how you can help their firms to be both more successful and with a better culture, how can they best find you and reach you?
I'm always active on LinkedIn, and then our website, actingexecutives.com. Take a look. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn and chat, but that's probably the best 2 places. I'm not too active on Facebook, or Instagram.
Great.
So,
And John is spelled Jon, for those of you who are listening.
Yes.
So look for him on LinkedIn and reach out to him, because he has amazing expertise in the business world that he wants to use now to help us be more successful with a better culture and less stress. And those things are so important.
Appreciate it. Exactly.
Thanks for joining us today, John. And thanks to all of you for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. And as always, please be well, be safe, and be free.